Hey y'all. So wow. As I was kind of growing in my faith and stuff like that, I found this actually, kind of interesting little dispute in my a little bit of a conflict between my beliefs. Now when you believe that say the Bible, I'm not sure if the Bible says it, but that the earth is so young that it's 6,000 years old or less, give or take. It's like 6,000 years old. Very young, right? I used to think that was a metaphorical thing, honestly. And I mean, if you think it's a metaphorical thing, I completely understand you. I mean, I would think of it as a metaphorical thing as well. Like, oh, maybe 1 year is like extremely long. It's like 3.4 billion years. Such a long time. And then honestly, I was listening to somebody talk about this, and then they said that when Adam was created, he wasn't created as a child, he was created as a man. Now, of course, he is one of God's children, but he was not a child in maturity, in physical maturity. So when Adam and Eve were made, they never went through the process of, growing up into an adult. They were already created as adults. Now, putting about this into perspective, God can, and he has, I'm not sure about will now, I mean, we'll see what he decides, created people and things in a mature state without them having to develop into, like the natural process. Now, thinking about it this way, it would make more sense now to say that it didn't take 6,000 years, or say about 1,000 years, for the earth to form. When God made earth, he did it instantly. He did it by speaking it into existence. Amazingly enough, it doesn't even take speech from God to create something. He is so powerful, he can have the intention of it happening. And if he lets it happen, if he intends for it to happen, it will happen. He is so powerful that he merely chooses to speak things into existence. He doesn't even have to speak for it to happen. So, when he created Earth like it is today. We look at this whole map about like Pangea, the dinosaurs and stuff like that. When you think about it this way, that maybe they weren't, alive like 3 billion years ago, but rather so that God actually made everything as if it had aged to that state. And by the way, we track Pangea because of how continents drift. So we're trying to, it's like looking at a graph and then trying to make assumptions from that graph, which, we do a lot of times in math, right? But people do it with tectonic plates as well. I mean, it doesn't mean that there was Pangea. And now thinking about this, I don't even believe that there was a Pangea. Now, granted, if God, say, made the earth earlier, like about a few billion years earlier, Pangea would have been there. Likely so. If he intended for things to be as if it were today, but like, in that circumstance, then it would have been Pangea. But looking at it now, if the earth is 6,000 years old, then it just never went through Pangea. And looking back on it now, it makes perfect sense. Now, obviously, believe what you want to believe in terms of how old the earth is, but it makes more sense thinking about it this way, because if God made Adam and Eve already as a man and as a woman, not as a boy or girl, but as a man or woman, then it makes perfect sense that God made the earth in a mature state. Now, if we're talking about dinosaurs and stuff like that, they could have existed back then in biblical times. Another reasonable explanation is that they already have their bones in the dirt and stuff like that. I mean, again, this is not the gospel. I mean, this is like a very hard thing to like debate and stuff like that. I could be wrong. I could be like super far off with, my conclusions. But one thing that is true is that God made man and woman, the very first two, men and women, as mature adults. So it would make sense that we came to this conclusion. But if the earth actually is 3.4 billion years old, but, God just made us so much later than, say, dinosaurs, other creatures, plants, all that, then I would also accept that because it makes sense as well. But thinking about it now, I mean, it also does make sense that God wouldn't wait 1 billion years to make us. He's a patient God, given that. He is very patient with us. He's patient with when he's going to come back. He's very patient with about everything. Well, more than everything. He is the most patient God ever. So, likely so, he probably didn't wait 1 billion years to make us, in difference between making plants and animals, all that stuff. God created time. Time is creation. Time is one of God's creation, and he did create time a little bit, I think it was before Earth. Alright, I don't really have any verses to reference off for here. But God did create time. Everything that is not God is something that God created. The only thing that God does not create are, transformations of his creation. Like you say, God made a tree. He made all the materials needed to make a book. Yes, he made every single atom of that. That gets made into a satanic book. God made every single physical atom of that book, but man made it into something evil. So, the only thing that man can create is ideas and transform what God has already created into other things. But God has created every single atom, every single thing. The only thing that he lets into creation, but he does not create himself, are ideas that just come from man. I mean, I don't want to put words in his mouth or anything, but that's just, it's, in my opinion, a pretty accurate synopsis of it. So, what I'm trying to say is that it makes sense even if biblical history does not seem to make sense. Because when we just take a look at things not just from science, but we also take it from logic, we take it from reasoning, we take it from what would God do? What would the Bible say? If we, somehow we divided our reasoning in such a way that we get logical and reasonable conclusions, then it would make sense. And by the way, I just want to say science is not always right. The whole laws, like Newton's laws of force and stuff like that, that's right. But there's also science that says, oh, there may be more than two genders. There may be more than two genders. Really? Really? Come on. This science says that there's more than two genders. Not buying that stuff. So we can't just use science to prove our reasoning, because science is only based on what we can see. But a lot of things that God does is that we can't see him. John Cena reference, but we can't see him. but we can see his work. We can see what he's done, and you can see what he does. And if you look at it through the lens that he desires that you look it through, then you will understand it's by him. But anyways, that's all I have to say. This isn't really a Bible study episode, but this is just something really interesting about biblical history and biblical reasoning that I found. So comment down your thoughts. If you disagree with me on the whole 6,000 years thing, please comment down. I want to see what your reasoning is. Anyways, I'll see you all in the next time. Peace.